HOA officers stormed my ranch yelling violation. Then my biker gang rolled in behind them. The sun was barely cracking over the horizon, painting the Wyoming sky in streaks of orange and pink, when I heard the crunch of tires on my gravel drive. My ranch, a sprawling 50 acres of wild grass and stubborn dreams, was my sanctuary, a place where rules didn't exist unless I made them. I was sipping my second cup of black coffee, the kind that could wake a coma patient, when the first shout sliced through the morning calm. "Mr. Callahan, this is the Karen Hills Homeowners Association. You're in violation." I froze, the mug halfway to my lips. Violation? I didn't even know the HOA had jurisdiction out here. My land was miles from their cookie-cutter cul-de-sacs, their manicured lawns, and their obsession with curb appeal. But there they were, 3 of them, strutting toward my porch like they owned the place. Leading the charge was Linda, the HOA president, her clipboard clutched like a holy relic. Her perm was so tight it looked like it was strangling her scalp. Flanking her were Gary, a retired accountant with a permanent scowl, and Susan, whose fake smile could curdle milk. Violation of what? I called out, stepping onto the porch, my boots thumping against the warped wood. The air smelled of dust and defiance. Linda thrust her clipboard forward, her finger jabbing at a list of grievances. "Your property is an eyesore. That rusted tractor, those wildflowers, and good heavens, the motorcycles parked by your barn. They're a blight on the community." I glanced at the barn, where my pride and joy, a half-dozen Harleys, gleamed in the morning light. They weren't just bikes. They were my history, my freedom, my family. "Those wildflowers are native, Linda. And the bikes? They're art. You wouldn't get it." Her face turned the color of a stop sign. "This isn't a negotiation, Mr. Callahan. You have 48 hours to comply, or we'll escalate to legal action." I laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that made Gary flinch. "Legal action? You're on my land, threatening me over flowers and bikes. Get out of here before I sick my dog on you." Susan gasped, clutching her pearls, literal pearls, because of course she was that kind of Karen. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I would," I said, whistling sharply. From around the house came Boomer, my ancient bloodhound, who promptly flopped onto the porch and started snoring. The HOA trio stared, dumbfounded. "This is your last warning," Linda shrieked, her voice hitting a pitch that could shatter glass. They stormed back to their SUV, kicking up gravel as they sped off. I shook my head, figuring that was the end of it. I was wrong. By noon, the heat was brutal, and I was out by the barn, tinkering with my favorite Harley, a '78 shovelhead I'd rebuilt from scrap. The wildflowers Linda hated so much, lupines and Indian paintbrush, swayed in the breeze, their colors a quiet rebellion against the HOA's beige tyranny. I was lost in the rhythm of wrench and grease when I heard it. The low, unmistakable growl of engines. Not one, not two, but a dozen. My heart kicked into overdrive. I stood, wiping my hands on my jeans, and saw them crest the Hilmy old crew, the Iron Wolves. 12 leather-clad, tattooed misfits on bikes that roared like thunder. Leading them was Rex, my best friend, and the meanest-looking teddy bear you'd ever meet. His beard was grayer now, but his grin was still pure mischief. "Jake Callahan, you son of a gun," Rex bellowed, cutting his engine and swinging off his bike. "Heard you got Karen trouble. Figured we'd roll in and scare him straight." I laughed, clapping him on the back. "How'd you even know?" Rex winked. "Word travels fast when you've got friends in low places. Plus, your neighbor, old guy with the chickens, he saw the HOA vultures circling and gave me a call. That'd be Earl, my only neighbor for miles, a cranky Vietnam vet who hated the HOA almost as much as I did. "Well, you're just in time for lunch," I said. "Got some burgers and beers in the fridge." The wolves descended on my ranch like a rowdy family reunion. They parked their bikes by the barn, cracked open beers, and started swapping stories louder than a rock concert. For a moment, I forgot about Linda and her clipboard. It felt like the old days, when we'd ride from coast to coast, living for the open road and the brotherhood of the pack. But the peace didn't last. Around 3 p.m., the SUV returned. This time, Linda had brought reinforcements, a sheriff's deputy and a guy in a cheap suit who I assumed was their lawyer. They pulled up, and Linda marched toward me, her face smug. "Mr. Callahan, you've ignored our demands. Deputy Harris is here to enforce compliance. and Mr. Stein will ensure it's all legal. The wolves went quiet, their eyes narrowing. Rex cracked his knuckles, a sound like breaking twigs. I held up a hand, signaling them to stand down for now. "Deputy Harris," I said, nodding at the young officer, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "What's this about?" Harris shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, the HOA filed a complaint. Says your property violates county ordinances. I'm just here to, check it out." "Ordinances," I said, crossing my arms. "My land's zoned agricultural. Those flowers are habitat for pollinators. The bikes are registered and road legal. What's the violation?" Linda cut in, her voice dripping with triumph. "Your lifestyle, Mr. Callahan. This biker gang is a public nuisance. We're protecting property values." That's when Rex laughed, a deep, booming sound that made Linda jump. "Lady, you think we're a nuisance? You ain't seen nothing yet." He whistled, and the wolves revved their engines in unison, a deafening roar that shook the ground. Linda clutched her clipboard like a shield, her eyes wide with panic. Deputy Harris raised his hands. "All right, everybody calm down. Mr. Callahan, I'll need to inspect the property. If everything's in order, there's no issue." "Inspect away," I said, gesturing toward the barn. "But you'll find nothing wrong." As Harris and the lawyer headed toward the barn, I noticed something odd, a flicker of movement in the wildflower field. At first, I thought it was a deer, but then I saw a hara girl, maybe 16, with tangled brown hair and a backpack slung over one shoulder. She was crouched low, watching us, her eyes wide with fear. I didn't recognize her, and out here, strangers were rare. My gut twisted. Something wasn't right. "Rex," I muttered, nodding toward the field. "You see that?" He followed my gaze, his grin fading. "Yeah, looks like a runaway. Want me to check it out?" "Not yet," I said. "Let's deal with the Karens first." Harris and the lawyer returned, the deputy looking sheepish. "Everything seems fine, Mr. Callahan. The bikes are legal, and the land's zoned correctly. I don't see any violations." Linda's face contorted. "This is outrageous. You're letting these thugs ruin our community." Harris sighed. "Ma'am, there's no crime here. I suggest you take it up with the county board." As Linda sputtered, I glanced back at the field. The girl was gone. My unease grew, but before I could act, Rex clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Let's celebrate, brother. Karens, 0. Wolves, 1. The wolves cheered, but my mind was elsewhere. That girl, who was she, and why was she hiding on my land? I had a feeling this wasn't over. That night, the ranch was alive with laughter and the clink of beer bottles. The wolves had set up a bonfire, and the smell of grilled burgers mixed with the smoky tang of burning cedar. I tried to join in, but my eyes kept drifting to the wildflower field, now cloaked in darkness. The girl hadn't reappeared, but I couldn't shake the sense that she was still out there. Around midnight, most of the wolves had crashed in the barn or passed out by the fire. Rex and I sat on the porch, nursing our drinks. "You're distracted, Jake," he said, his voice low. "What's eating you?" I told him about the girl. His brow furrowed. "Could be trouble. Runaways don't just show up in the middle of nowhere. You think she's tied to the HOA crap?" "Doubt it," I said. "But something's off. I'm going to check the field at first light." Rex nodded. "I'll keep the boys ready, just in case." Sleep didn't come easy. My dreams were a mess of revving engines, Linda's shrill voice, and the girl's scared eyes. At dawn, I was up, pulling on my boots and grabbing a flashlight. The field was quiet, the wildflowers glistening with dew. I moved slowly, scanning for signs of her. That's when I found it. A small camp hidden among the lupins. A tarp, a sleeping bag, and a notebook with a cracked spine. I picked it up, my heart pounding. Scrawled on the first page was a name, Ellie. Before I could process it, I heard a rustle. I spun around, and there she was, Ellie, clutching a pocket knife, her eyes fierce despite the tremble in her hands. "Don't come closer," she hissed. "Easy, kid," I said, raising my hands. "I'm not going to hurt you. This is my land. Why are you here?" She hesitated, her knife wavering. "I needed somewhere to hide. I didn't know anyone lived here." "Hide from what?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. Her eyes darted toward the road, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "From them." I followed her gaze, expecting to see Linda's SUV. Instead, a black sedan was parked just beyond my gate, its engine idling. 2 men in suits stood beside it, their postures too stiff for cops, or HOA goons. My blood ran cold. Whoever Ellie was running from, they weren't here for wildflowers. Who are they? I asked, stepping closer. She shook her head, tears welling up. I can't tell you. They'll kill me. I didn't have time to press her. The sedan's doors slammed, and the men started toward the ranch. I grabbed Ellie's arm, ignoring her protest. Come with me. Now. We ran back to the house, my mind racing. The HOA, the wolves, and now this? My quiet life was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. As we reached the porch, Rex was already there, his face grim. Trouble's coming, Jake. Those suits don't look friendly. Wake the wolves, I said, and keep an eye on her. I pushed Ellie toward him, then grabbed my shotgun from the hall closet. Whatever was going on, I wasn't letting anyone HOA, suits, or otherwise take my ranch or that kid without a fight. The morning air was thick with tension as the two men in suits approached my ranch, their polished shoes kicking up dust on the gravel drive. Ellie clung to the porch railing, her pocket knife still in hand, her eyes darting between me and the strangers. Rex had roused the iron wolves, and the barn was alive with the clatter of boots and the low growl of voices. My shotgun felt heavy, but I kept it lowered for now. I wasn't about to let these suits, or whoever they worked for, think they could waltz onto my land and call the shots. Who are you? I shouted, stepping off the porch. My voice carried the weight of a man who'd faced down worse than a couple of city boys in cheap ties. The taller one, with a jaw sharp enough to cut glass, raised a hand. Mr. Callahan, we're with Pinnacle Security. We're here for the girl. His tone was calm, professional, but it sent a chill down my spine. Pinnacle Security wasn't some small-time outfit. They were the kind of private firm that worked for people with more money than morals. She's got a name, I said, glancing at Ellie. And she's not going anywhere until I know what's going on. The second man, shorter and stockier, smirked. You don't want to get involved, old man. Hand her over, and we'll be on our way. Rex stepped up beside me, his massive frame casting a shadow. You boys must be new around here. Nobody talks to Jake like that on his own land. The wolves gathered behind us, their leather creaking, their eyes hard. The suits didn't flinch, but I saw the taller one's hand twitch toward his jacket. Armed. I tightened my grip on the shotgun. Last chance, I said. Tell me why you're after her, or you'll be picking buckshot out of your fancy suits. Ellie's voice broke the standoff, small but fierce. They're not security. They're with my father. He wants me back. Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken pain. Your father? I asked, keeping my eyes on the suits. Who's he? She swallowed hard. Senator Hargrove. The name hit like a punch. Senator William Hargrove, Wyoming's golden boy, all smiles and promises on TV, champion of family values. If Ellie was his daughter, this wasn't just a runaway situation. This was political dynamite. Why's a senator sending goons after his own kid? I demanded. The tall suit, who I'd dubbed Sharp Jaw, stepped forward. That's above your pay grade, Callahan. She's a minor, and we're authorized to return her to her family. Authorized by who? Rex growled. Show me a badge, a warrant, something. The suits exchanged a glance, and I knew they didn't have one. This was a private job, off the books. My gut twisted. Ellie wasn't just hiding from an overbearing dad, she was running from something darker. Before I could press further, a familiar SUV roared up the drive. Linda and her HOA cronies were back, their timing so perfect it was almost comical. She leapt out, clipboard in hand, oblivious to the standoff. Mr. Callahan, your gang is terrorizing the neighborhood. I've called the sheriff. Deputy Harris, who must have drawn the short straw today, climbed out of his cruiser, looking like he'd aged a decade since yesterday. Jake, what's going on here? He asked, eyeing the suits, the wolves, and Ellie. These fellas are trying to kidnap a kid, I said, nodding toward the suits. And Linda's here to complain about my flowers again. Linda's mouth dropped open. Kidnapping? This is about property standards. Harris rubbed his temples. Everybody just calm down. You too, he pointed at the suits. Who are you, and what's your business here? Sharp Jaw repeated his Pinnacle Security spiel, but Harris wasn't buying it. No warrant, no girl, he said firmly. You want her, you go through proper channels. The suits hesitated, then backed off, retreating to their sedan. This isn't over, Sharp Jaw called before they peeled out, leaving a cloud of dust. Linda, undeterred, waved her clipboard. Deputy, You can't ignore his violations. Those motorcycles. Linda, Harris snapped. Unless you've got evidence of a crime, I suggest you leave. She huffed, her perm trembling with indignation, and stormed back to her SUV. The wolves cheered, but I wasn't celebrating. Ellie was still shaking, and those suits would be back. That afternoon, I sat Ellie down in the kitchen with a glass of lemonade. The wolves were outside, keeping watch, while Rex tinkered with his bike, his way of burning off steam. Ellie's story came out in halting pieces. Her father, the senator, wasn't the saint he played on TV. Behind closed doors, he was controlling, manipulative, and desperate to keep his image spotless. Ellie had run away after uncovering some file on his laptop, something about campaign funds and shady deals. She didn't know the details, but it was enough to make her a liability. I took the file, she whispered, clutching her backpack. It's on a flash drive. If he gets it back, he'll bury it. And me? I leaned back, the weight of her words sinking in. This wasn't just about a runaway kid anymore. It was about corruption, power, and a girl who'd stumbled into a hornet's nest. Why my ranch? I asked. She shrugged, her eyes distant. I was hitchhiking, and your wildflowers, they reminded me of my mom. She loved lupins. She died when I was 10. Her voice cracked, and my heart did too. I'd lost my own wife, Sarah, 5 years ago to cancer. Those wildflowers weren't just weeds to me, either. They were her favorite, planted in her memory. I reached across the table, squeezing Ellie's hand. You're safe here, kid. I promise. But promises are fragile things, Genshurjia. System, things, and I wasn't sure I could keep this one. The wolves took turns keeping watch that night, their bikes forming a protective ring around the ranch. I barely slept, my mind racing with questions. How far would Hargrove go to get that flash drive? And what was on it? Ellie was holed up in the guest room, clutching her backpack like a lifeline. I didn't push her to hand over the drive, not yet. Trust takes time, and she'd been through enough. At dawn, Rex found me on the porch, his face grim. Got a call from Earl, he said. Those suits were sniffing around his place, asking about a girl. They're not giving up. I cursed under my breath. We need to get her out of here. Somewhere safe. Rex nodded. I know a guy in Montana. Ex-cop, runs a safe house for kids like her. But we'll need a plan to move her without being followed. We were hashing out the details when Ellie appeared, her eyes red from crying. I don't want to run forever, she said. I want to fight back. I admired her guts, but she was 16, scared, and in over her head. One step at a time, I said. First, we keep you safe. Then we figure out what's on that flash drive. She hesitated, then pulled a small USB drive from her backpack and slid it across the table. It's encrypted. I couldn't open it. I pocketed the drive, my mind racing. If Hargrove was willing to send armed men after his own daughter, this was bigger than a few shady deals. We needed help, and I knew just the person. Enter Maria Vasquez, the twist I didn't see coming. Maria was a reporter I'd met years ago, back when Sarah was still alive. She'd written a piece about our biker charity rides, and we'd stayed in touch. Maria had a nose for corruption and a knack for digging up dirt on powerful men. I called her, explained the situation, and sent her the flash drive's contents via a secure link. Her response came within hours. Jake, this is huge. Offshore accounts, bribes, connections to a mining company with ties to organized crime. Hargrove's done if this gets out. But there was a catch. Maria needed Ellie to go on record, to prove the file came from Hargrove's laptop. Without her testimony, it was just data damning, but not airtight. Ellie's face paled when I told her. He'll destroy me, she whispered. He won't touch you, I said, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. We'll protect you. The wolves rallied around her, their rough exteriors hiding hearts of gold. Big Mike, a 300-pound giant with a teddy bear tattoo, taught her how to throw a punch. Lila, the only woman in the crew, gave her a leather jacket that was too big but made her smile for the first time in days. For a moment, it felt like we were a family, fighting for something bigger than ourselves. But Hargrove wasn't done. That night, the black sedan returned, this time with 4 men. They didn't bother with pleasantries, just opened fire. Bullets tore through the barn, and the wolves hit the deck, returning fire with their own weapons. I grabbed Ellie and Dove behind the couch, my shotgun roaring. One of the suits went down, but the others kept coming. Rex took a bullet to the shoulder, grunting but still firing. Get her out, he shouted. I dragged Ellie through the back door, sprinting for the barn. The Harleys were our only shot. I shoved her onto the back of my shovel head, kicked it to life, and tore out into the night. Gunfire echoed behind us, but I didn't look back. The wildflowers blurred past, their colors lost in the dark. We made it to Earl's place, where Maria was waiting with a car. "I've got a safe house in Denver," she said, "but we need to move fast." Ellie hugged me, her tears soaking my shirt. "Thank you," she whispered. "Go," I said, my throat tight. "We'll handle things here." As they drove off, I rode back to the ranch, my heart pounding. The wolves had driven off the attackers, but Rex was bleeding badly. Big Mike was patching him up, cursing under his breath. The barn was riddled with bullet holes, and 2 of the bikes were totaled. The cost of this fight was higher than I'd expected. The next day, Maria broke the story. The headline screamed, "Senator Hargrove linked to corruption scandal." The flash drive's contents, combined with Ellie's testimony, were enough to spark a federal investigation. Hargrove's career imploded overnight, his smug face plastered across every news channel, denying everything. But the victory was bitter. Ellie was safe, but she'd never be the same. She'd lost her family, her home, her innocence. The wolves buried one of their own, Jimmy, a quiet kid who'd taken a bullet to the chest. I planted more wildflowers by the barn, one for Sarah, one for Jimmy, one for Ellie's mom. The lupins swayed in the breeze, a silent promise to keep fighting. Linda and the HOA never came back. I heard she moved to Florida, probably terrorizing some other poor soul with her clipboard. Deputy Harris stopped by with a six-pack, an apology for not doing more. I didn't blame him. Some fights are too big for one man. Sitting on my porch, watching the sunset, I thought about Ellie. She'd emailed me from the safe house, a single line. "I'm okay, but I missed the flowers." I smiled, but it hurt. Freedom always comes at a price, and sometimes it's your heart. What would you have done? Was it right to risk everything for a stranger, or should I have stayed out of it? Share your thoughts. I am listening.